So today we are going to talk about FamilySearch, and in the chat we have a number of longtime users and some people who used FamilySearch a little while ago. Go ahead and transition. So we are going to talk about how to do descendancy research. So this is the fan view over on FamilySearch, and before we go there, let me explain why in the heck would you want to do descendancy research?
You're going to explain that, or you're asking
I'm
me?
asking. I just realized I didn't ask. Why, dear, would you want to do descendancy research?
Well, to find other people, because sometimes when you get stuck on a line, it might be because the records you're going through with that particular ancestral line are not there to go back further. But if you find out who all their descendants are, there might be some other lines that there's some other records available that give you more clues.
Absolutely. And Susie at the beginning of this chat was wondering, how can I work when on family history when I hit a brick wall? Well, descendancy research is one of the ways that sometimes you have to go backwards to go forward, which really would be forward to go backwards. Anyway, the idea is sometimes instead of just climbing straight back up your tree, sometimes you have to come back down, and then some of the siblings or the nieces and nephews or the grandchildren may have the clues you need to break open that brick wall. So we're going to talk about descendancy.
So for those of you who have done descendancy research, just put in the comments below that yes, I've done descendancy research, and be sure to hit on the like button for this video and share it with any of your friends that you want to right now.
What you need to do in order to find a place to do descendancy research is you can choose the ancestor further back in time that you're working on. Or if you're looking for a new place to research, then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to about the 1700s to 1800s. I'm seeing a lot of participation over there in chat. You guys are blowing up. Yes, 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 yes. I've done it. No, but willing to learn. Great. Thanks, Ethel. I'm so glad you're here to learn how to do this. All right. So what we have over here is Andy's fan chart, and he's going to go back to an ancestor that is somewhere in the 1700s or the early 1800s. And a couple of caveats before he picks someone is we want to research in an area where you have strength. So for me, if he picked German records or Swedish records, I don't speak those language. And since I have young children at home, I don't have time to learn. So I'm not going to pick a place right there. Do you speak those languages?
I speak a little bit of German.
Sweet. So are we going to go to German yet?
We're not.
We're not. So when you're working for descendancy research, you want to look for a place where you have some strength or you're willing to learn. So we're going to pick someone in the 1700s or the early 1800s. Who'd you pick?
Well, we're picking somebody from my wife's favorite place, Cornwall.
Yay! Cornwall, England.
Now, I don't have any Poldarks in my ancestry because Poldark is actually a completely made-up name, but it is similar to a lot of Cornish names.
Okay.
And we're going to be picking on this person up here, Mary Tracy.
Oh, that's somebody I haven't heard you talk about before.
Exactly, because it's descendancy research.
There you go. Oh, thanks, Maria. I am feeling better. For some of you who watched our earlier live stream, I have had insomnia, and I finally got to sleep. So thanks, Maria. All right, so we're going to pick this person.
Yep, Mary Therese.
Okay.
Now, we're on the fan chart right here, right now. And what we want to do is we want to get to the descendancy view. But before we do that, we need to make her, or whoever you're choosing, the main person. So I'm going to click on her, and I'm going to go to tree. And that's actually going to make her the very center of the fan chart. Now I can go up to the left and choose the descendancy chart.
Yep. Click that on.
All right.
Now, what you're going to see is you're going to see a list of some of her recent ancestors, some of her children and her spouse. And you're going to see some icons on the right. Now, to make sure that you have all of the icons on that you want, Andy, go ahead and click on options. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn on these different notifications. So notice that he's just turned them all off and they go away, and that's a nice view, but it's not very helpful. But so he's turned on record hints, research suggestions, and data problems. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with the easiest ones to consider first, and then work to the through the rest of those over there. All right. Yep. So the first ones I like to look at are the red ones, actually. Primarily because, go ahead and show us one of those red ones. Because when you look at this, some of these red data problems are missing standardized birthplace. Or what was the other one? Standardized death place or christening place. So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like.
So we're going to go over now to the person, and we're looking at the birthplace and the christening place. Now remember right here, I don't have any records. I'm just going off of what is written there. And so what we can see here is in this, there is St. Kevern, and it's like a Cornwall, England, without the vowels for it. Which, back when we wrote stuff on a piece of paper, you could do things like that so you could save space, but with the computers, we don't need to do that. And so we can actually change this. So I'm going to just open it up, go to the birthplace, and I'll start typing, and it's going to pop up and tell me, yeah, it is this St. Kevern, Cornwall, England. And my reason is I just standardized the birthplace.
So I am a big advocate of making sure that you write solid reason statements. And when I get the mouse again, I'll drop a link into some guidelines on how to write reason statements. But when you're just standardizing, go ahead and do the other one while we're talking. When you're just standardizing location, it is perfectly acceptable to say, the only reason I made a change was I was standardizing that location. Now you have to be careful. Go ahead and go back to like you're attempting to change it. Because notice... Here.
So if I just start with just St. Kevern, it has all these St. Keverns. Let's see if I can get some other things.
But one of the things I want you to pay attention to is they try to let you know when that place was in that name jurisdiction. So you have one that says place of worship 1997 to present. There's another one that was said until 1801. You're not seeing them. But you want to look at the dates. So a lot of the places will show up and tell you present back date, like 1871. That would be Baden was in Germany. But before 1871, if you were researching in Baden, it would be in a different location. And so FamilySearch tries to give you prompts as to what was that location's name in the time period. And so you want to standardize to the time period, not just to what we call it now. I hope that makes sense. So go ahead and click save.
So one thing you'll notice here is they used to have that red exclamation point saying that, hey, this was a problem. They don't anymore. Yep.
Now, some of the red exclamation points take a little while to work through. And one of the ones they had on Mary, was that she could possibly have a possible duplicate. And we're not going to cover that in this video. We have videos about merging duplicates on our channel. And again, once he gives me the mouse back, I'll drop a link to that as well. So let's go ahead and explore the blue hints. I got to make my list. So go ahead and walk us through the blue hints.
All right. So on the blue hints, these are going to be some different records that FamilySearch has identified based on the information that you've put in that the computer thinks might be this person. And this is why it's actually important to try to resolve as many of those red exclamation points first, because you'll notice it was the place for the christening and the baptism. And by having this new information, it's going to be looking specifically for those areas. And so here now, there is 4 down here. It's showing 3, but there's a total of 4. And I'm going to actually go click on the show all so I can see all of those records. And we have a potential marriage. We have a birth christening with a Stephen. We have a child of Edward Roberts, and we have a child of Anne Roberts.
And so we are not necessarily going to go evaluate this right now because we have a video on it. And
she needs the thing because she's pointing at something and it's not to anything that I can tell because it was between 3 or 4 things.
So if you'll watch this video, we'll talk about how do you process record hints. So let's go back to the descendancy view and let's talk about what do you do with Descendancy Research. So if you notice, there's a lot of blue hints and there's a lot of these red hints that we can work for for the individuals. I want to talk about purple, and then we're going to talk more about the actual descendancy, because this doesn't look like descendancy research yet. This just looks like what we would normally go through. So let's go ahead and look at a purple example.
And let's see here.
Scroll that up. Yeah.
I can't get that scrolled up enough, so I'm going to have to...
Yeah, so we're going to go, there's a purple icon that's
there.
popping up on William Holman.
There we go. I was making sure they could see it on the screen here.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and look at William Holman. He has a purple. So we can click on it right here, and it says, no sources attached. Well, that is a perfect place to start trying to work on your tree, depending on the time period and the location. Let's go down a little bit further to another one and see what some other purples might be. There's an Edward, no sources, my missing vital event. Some of the sources, the purples could also be parents or a husband and wife who've been married long enough and there's no children. There could be women who had a spouse die and they lived long enough that they could have remarried. So these purple ones are just recommendations of some searches that you want to investigate that you may or may not have considered before. So that's what a purple is. So let's talk about, well, what is then descendancy research? So walk us through descendancy research over here on the left.
So the whole point of descendancy research is, instead of going from like yourself backwards, you're picking a person and going forwards, and you're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is you want to find the records that match the person up with their spouse, mm-hmm. that match all of their children with those two, that then of course match the children with their spouses and their kids, and then keep on going. And so it sort of balloons, and you have to sort of take it in a step-by-step, one at a time, because if you try to do everybody at once, you'll notice that you're starting with, one person that we're then got 3 children, and those children all have spouses, and so then that's 6 people that we're looking at. Mm-hmm. And you can start to get off on tangents, because now you're looking for a spouse's parents, mm-hmm. and you forgot where you were at the first place. Right. So you need to make sure that you know what your goal is, what you're trying to build down from.
And so one of the things I like to do when I'm doing descendancy research, so I like to come and make sure that I click on generation 1 up there at the top, right there. I click on generation 1, right? Generation 1, did I exhaust all of the record hints there? If I did, great. Then I click on generation 2. And now I have all of these hints and all of these problems and all of these purple icons to try to explore and investigate. Then I can click on 3 and then 4. So do 3 and scroll down. Notice that it's expanding these children and these descendants from Mary for me. And then I can click 4, click right there. And now it does all the search and expand it for me. Now, if I want to keep going down a generation, let me see.
Let's see if there is anybody. Oh, there is one.
So right there, there's an arrow that points to your, I got the flip bar, to your right. An arrow that points to the right, that means it can expand because there's more generations. So at the top, you can't expand it, but as you're scrolling down, you can hit these arrows, and you can just keep going all the way until you run into living individuals, and they won't appear on the tree unless you put them in the tree. So this is a place where you can get lost for a very long time working on one ancestor. And one of the things I heard one person say one time is, go find my grandbabies. So if you are a grandma, you know how much you love your grandbabies. And so descendancy research goes and looks for all the grandbabies, the great-grandbabies, and so on and so forth for all the generations. And it's a great place to do some research. Consider it sometimes surname research, but it can also lead you to clues you hadn't considered before, because as you're looking for these other descendants, you may face, one brick wall I found was where my Caroline Mock, she was married to Joseph Geiser. For some of you who've watched a lot of our videos, you've heard me talk about Joseph before. So I researched, I went back and I looked at Caroline Mock's father and then the grandfather, and then I did research all the way down. In so doing, I found that one of her cousins was married to a Pusaker, and a Pusaker died in Franklin County, where she died as well, and all of these folks died. And one stone on all of these descendants said that they were from Gillersheim, Hanover. And it was Hanover. It wasn't Germany yet, because back before 1871, it was just Hanover. So we had a place. And then I started seeing that all of these people that migrated together were all from Gillersheim. And now I've opened up a brick wall. I have new records to research over there in Germany, all because we did descendancy research on the mock lines.
All right. So I wanted to show you, I'm trying to get this to do what I want it to do over here first. I think that's close enough.
Okay.
All right. So this is a line that I haven't done any descendancy research on. And I know that because I see lots of these blue icons telling me that, hey, there's lots of records here. 5 records for this person. There's just 1 record hint for that person. There's 3 records for that person. And these are records back from the early 1800s or even into the 1700s. So there's not that many records to begin with. And since they are showing, hey, we're missing all these records that haven't been attached, I know that I haven't done any descendancy research on that one. Now, if I go back to my fan chart here, and on my fan chart, let me go back over to James Kevern, I believe. So I've put James Kevern as my primary person, and I go back over here and I go to descendancy, and you'll notice this one's actually much different. There's not near as many blues. There's a couple of blues because as FamilySearch gets new records, it's going to, populate some different record hints. But
I thought you'd work there.
Well,
just teasing.
And that's the problem is it's been probably 6 months to a year since I went through and cleaned up all of this.
Yes.
And now there's just more. And this is from other people doing stuff and adding. But whereas before on that other one, everybody had some sort of a hint. This one, there's some of these people that don't have hints.
Yep.
And you can see that on the second generation, maybe.
Oh, you're now okay.
There.
Yeah.
You can see that because of here, there's just some blanks on these different people.
And the one thing to keep in mind is FamilySearch is adding new collections all of the time to their site. And not only are they adding new collections, there's a lot of collections that we have searched that were not searchable. You had to go and browse through them and find them as if you were actually looking at a physical book. And as those records become searchable and that you can index, they've been indexed and now you can search for them. Well, now there are hints. And so sometimes you think, oh, well, I already looked at this. Well, yes, but now it's been indexed and searchable, and so you can attach it to your tree. So this is a process you can do quite often.
And let me show you something on that real quick. So here's one, Simon Kevern. This is an ancestor of mine. 33 sources. That's a lot of sources. And if we go down to the sources, you'll see that...
Nope, the source is in a new tab now.
They keep on changing where things are. So here's sources. There's some different people that have been adding them. Lots of different things. And one of the things that I did, this was several years ago. Look at this, 2013, 7 years ago. This is before FamilySearch had indexed all of the British census records. Well, there was some census records on the St. Kevern website that I went through, and they'd already been indexed, and so I put a link out to the web to that specific spot where that index was. And I did that for all of the 1841, 1851, 61, 71, 81 census records. Well, since that time, you'll notice then they have added those census records. And so now I can actually attach the real 1841 census record and remove that other link that I had there.
Or leave it there. It's fine.
Or I can leave it there also. That's fine too.
Yep. But go back, because there's another point of descendancy research. Sometimes go back to sources.
No, go back to sources.
Sorry. Go to Simon. Go to sources. Scroll down slowly until we see it. Go, 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 go. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. It was close to where you were. Keep going. Right there. So on the screen, I believe you can see it. Hover over unfinished attachments. So even though you have attached records to your ancestors, and it doesn't look like there's any hints, you found all the records you can find for your ancestor, well, have you attached all of these records to the people that record was talking about? Go ahead and click unfinished attachment. Let's see what's going on here. So here we're on the source linker view, and it says, yes, we've got Simon to Simon, and we have Jane to Jane, and then we have James, but now there's a Henry Richards. Now, some of those names are going to be the officiator with no relation. Sometimes it's just going to be like the minister or something, that the tax clerk, and they're on every record imaginable, and they're not your relative. So sometimes you're just going to go back to that previous view and click dismiss, because that person isn't, they're relevant, but they're not relevant to your research. And we don't need to put the tax collectors every time they send a name on a tax record or a land record or probate courts. We don't need to clutter up their feed with all of that. But if you do have, like Henry Roberts, someone that you need to go and attach that record to, then that's other things you can do in your descendancy research.
So here's one that should be easy. This is from a census, 1851. Mm-hmm. So let's click on that. And censuses are great because usually people are together as a family, and so we can see if we actually have all the family members here. So we have Simon and we have Betsy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we have...
So was Betsy...
Simon, Richard.
Was Betsy, Simon, Richard, and William's family? Biological mother.
No, because there was... Let's see
here. So
you
have to go to under Detach. It has an arrow.
Oh, wait, there.
Uh-huh. And that's how you can switch to the other mother.
There we go.
And then the kids are showing up. Mm-hmm.
There, Betsy, Kevin, Elizabeth Nichols. That makes more sense. Mm-hmm. And there is Simon to Simon, Richard to Richard, William to William. And then we have this Jane Richards and this Thomas Richards. And then it tells you the relationship in this census, a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law. And so I would really just need to go through the records of this family and see, okay, where does Jane fit in and where does Thomas fit in? So for instance, and this is great because this family does have a Jane, mm-hmm. but this Jane is not this Jane.
Right.
This Jane is the daughter. This Jane is the daughter-in-law. That makes Thanksgiving dinner a little bit complicated.
They weren't very creative with their names right there. So we have a couple of comments in there. We'll come back to that one in a second. Patricia had said she found maiden names for her ancestors by doing descendancy research. Yes. Yep. So I had a brick wall for William James Townsend. I didn't know who his parents were or his siblings. I did inferential genealogy, which I do have a blog post about, that I'm writing a note. Anyway, when I figured out who his siblings were, through this non-record inferential genealogy, it's very confusing, but it makes sense. One of the siblings had the name of their common mother, and it was very handy to be able to find that. But that was through Descendancy Research. So, yep, do that. Okay, so that is about all we have to talk about Descendancy Research. And so we're going to give our invite you to check out the other videos we have about how to use FamilySearch. Be sure to check the end cards for that, for FamilySearch videos, as well as for the latest video that we have.
So what questions do y'all have about Descendancy Research and getting started on Descendancy Research?
Okay, so there were a couple comments that I was pausing because we will leave up this bonus chat for a couple weeks, and then we take it off and we just focus on the videos for those of you who haven't been with us for a live stream before. But we're going to start hitting Q&A, so, tell us what your questions are related to FamilySearch, related to search strategies in general. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about this couple of comments. So I think, not really sure how to say your name, I'm sorry. But you said duplicates on FamilySearch are a total nightmare. Yes and no. So when you understand where the duplicates came from, you think, oh, okay, that's not so bad. So a lot of the duplicates came because when FamilySearch came up with this one tree concept and launched it in 2012, What they had was they had several different pots of record information that they were working with. They had user-submitted trees. They had another user-submitted tree that was primarily used by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They had this thing called the IGI files. Some of you who are very long-time researchers, you know about IGI. And if you don't know about IGI, I have a video about it, I think, in my big, long list. Anyway, so the IGI files, that was another one. And then there were one or two other, there were new contributions for people creating the family tree information. And so when you realize there's all of these different places where this information was coming together, and FamilySearch said, gosh, we're beating our heads trying to figure out what is actually a match and what isn't. And we're wasting our time and energy trying to keep track of all of these spots. What if we just put everything in the same spot and then invited users to figure it out? Well, I have been really thrilled because I've been able to clean up a lot of these trees, and there'll be like a little twig over created by like a marriage records when the FamilySearch, or the predecessor to FamilySearch, went and found church records, and there were marriage church records, and then they put together this little twig of a name in their database, and it was the husband and wife and the date. So it's based on a source, but it's just floating around in the family tree. And then when I merge that together, I get the source and the people at the same time. I still have to clean some things up, but that's one really great thing about duplicates. And I'm getting needs, so I'm wondering.
I didn't knee you. No.
Oh, no. Oh, hey, they're changing stuff again.
Yeah, they changed stuff again. So I'm here.
Maybe this is why it crashed on Wednesday when we were talking.
I'm here. I went back to that Mary Trees because she had a duplicate, a potential duplicate. Mm-hmm. And what it allows you to do is, hey, take a look at these two people. So it's going to have one that's the surviving person and one that's the possible duplicate. And you can switch those if you want. But what I can see from this is, hey, this possible duplicate, all they have a name for her is Mary, that she's deceased. And she has a spouse who lines up with the spouse that I have.
In fact, their ID
number is the same. It's the same person. And they have a child that's the same person. And there is a record entry for her. Now, if you actually go into this record entry, I'll open this up here real quick, is going to just be a simple christening record that has the parents' names, and it has the child's name, the event date, and where it happened. And that's essentially it. And so that's why this Mary just has Mary as the name. It doesn't have a maiden name because this record didn't create that.
And scroll up. Now, this is an index, but one of the things that's been happening over the last year, 2 years, don't leave because it's that blue box right there. FamilySearch has been telling you the films in which you can then go browse to find what this index was based off of. And so although they don't have the image right yet because it's not indexed yet, you can then go and search in that record set. And that's a really cool feature that it's just kind of been subtle, but it's really been transformative. So you have the index, but then you know to what is this index based on. And that's like one of those little twigs I was talking about earlier when you have a husband and wife getting married or you have a christening. You have these little twigs in there. And so you just merge it together. And what you're doing is, in some instances, is pulling these sources over.
All right.
Cool. All right. So some people said, Maria said, attaching and detaching it's scary and you're not quite sure that it makes you nervous. Okay, so one of the things that I have to stress is attach and detach. As genealogists, we come to conclusions, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And sometimes we come across the conclusions other people have made and they were either right or wrong. So you'll have to attach or detach. The thing that keeps everybody playing nice in the sandbox, or at least should, is when we go with it, scroll down, and actually merge it in, is that you have to add the reason statements. You have to explain why you said that it was acceptable that you made this change. So for Andy, he's going to go ahead and type a simple reason statement. Say things like, what was in that record and why do you think it's a match? So reason for merge. So he's going to go ahead and tell you, well, the first one has this information on it, and the second one has that, and this is why I think they're together. So that is what helps you proceed, go ahead and go research with confidence, because you're going to leave all these little hints to yourself when you do the research later, and hints to others on the platforms, because other people can see your reason. But unfortunately, even though this reason 2 has been around since 2012, very few people are leaving their notes. And it gets really frustrating when somebody makes a change to the tree and you have no idea why. And I get mad at 2013 version of myself when I didn't do it. So it's okay. We can, if the change was made in 2013, 14, or 15, we can give those people a pass. But if you're making changes now, just let people know, and you can go ahead and not have to be too nervous, because you can change it and then tell people why you made that change.
There, I didn't do that great of a reason statement, but I did a sufficient one.
You did a sufficient
I basically identified the information that was the same between them, and that's why I was merging them together. And now, look at this. So those were merged together, and whereas before there was just one exclamation point, now there's 2. It's saying, hey, there's these 2 duplicate kids because there's these 2 Edward Roberts with the same person.
Right. Yep. Maria, let's tackle your question about merging. No. It does not take that record away. What happens is FamilySearch does not delete people. There is a change log.
Let me get over here first.
Yeah. So FamilySearch keeps track of all your changes. And
latest changes right here. Show all.
Yep. All right. There you go. Right there. You see that blue button? Let's say you disagree with the merge that took place. I have times when people have merged people together and I'm thinking, no. No. In fact, there was one for Dorothy Ann Zumstein, and I thought, oh, that's just not a common name. Well, it turns out there was a couple of Dorothy Ann Zumsteins, but only one of them was born in Ontario, lived in Ohio, and went back to the same place in Ontario. The other one went to Vermont, like just Vermont. They were always in Vermont, not even close. And so I was able to click the unmerge and tell people why. And
that's the important thing there, is when you click the unmerge, it doesn't just unmerge it. You have the reason that they merged them.
Yes.
So that you can review that.
Yes.
And then you can put in a reason of why you are unmerging them.
Yes. And then those 2 people are restored. Now, the one thing that is problematic is the sources stay with the combined person. So you have to go over to the person that you're detaching, unmerging the 2 people from, and go and attach the records over here and reattach it to that first person. So when you unmerge, you get that person, but their sources and their family is still with the merge. So yeah, it can be problematic, but leave a record trail and go forth.
All
That's
right.
about all I have to say.
Well, thank you all for coming, and hope you all have a happy Easter.
And happy Passover.
And Passover, that's right.
That's right. Thanks so much, Ascertain, for reminding us. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.